So I was really interested in the Isle of Man. They've got this strange ancient site there that's called the Meal Hill, and it's got like 6 chambers around it. I don't know if it's unclear from what the writings put whether it actually was a circle or a cairn, but the older name for it is a cairn. So it's sounding like it actually did used to be something like Newgrange or Nowth or Dauphin Island, with 6 chambers around it. Or else, why would you have any chambers in a stone circle? Doesn't make sense, does it? It definitely, if you look at the information on it, it actually was a cairn. Now, the Isle of Man has got a different parliament to England, hasn't it? It's got a head of state. You just have the Lord of Man. So the Romans didn't actually make it to the Isle of Man. I think it was the Vikings did, but not the Romans. It has got a lot of ancient sites there, like Cairn Valley Cairn and things like that. Now, the thing is that I don't really want to go into a debate about World War II because, Jeremy Corbyn, is accused of, being controversial about the war. We've got all the gas chambers in this and that. There's a certain symbology behind gas and chambers. If you look at the design of the gas chambers, I've actually got some of the designs of the German gas chambers. I'd never seen them before. You wouldn't know this unless you looked up the data and the information, right? But the design and shape, actually, I should really put photo up. I've got some photos, I think, of on my computer when I was researching it. I'll just tell you, though, you'll have to take my word for it. I am right about it. I've got the photos. So the design and shape of some of these gas chambers is actually like the shape of, like the court cairns in Ireland. They've got these kind of like court tomb things in Ireland. And like Bellasnap in the Cotswolds and West Kinnet Longbarrow, they literally, the style of them, they've got these like side bits that come around with grass on around the edges with the chamber in the middle. They're definitely styled on the old ancient sites, right? So there's some meaning and symbology used for a power statement in those chambers that makes a reference, an art reference to the ancient sites. Now, we know, for example, in France, you've got it's called Gravitis, right? That's a big chambered site, but those ones are recognised as religious sites. Now, the thing is, right, when all these the ancient Neolithic sites are all across Europe, not just in the British Isles, but the British Isles is more specific to long barrows. If you listen to the experts, they definitely tell you that long barrows are more specific to England, whereas more of the round sites and tombs are for Europe. Now, in San Francisco at the moment, they've just actually legalized or decriminalized psychedelics, so it looks like they're letting people use them anymore. It's quite interesting because the term San Francisco is a little bit like St. Francis, San Francisco. We've got Pope Francis at the moment. I actually did write to the Vatican. I was talking about the importance of psychedelics because it is agreed upon by experts that the whole evolution of mankind's consciousness is there's a key and important part played through the use of psychedelics, and the experts agree on this. You've got like the Dr. Dennis McKenna and Jonathan Orton, people like that, and Paul Stamets and many more, Graham Hancock. And the whole principle is that when they're eating these things, it ends up, they end up reflecting and spending more time in contemplation and also reflecting on things. And then this is where you get the birth and evolution of the imagination, which is the whole reason you end up being able to imagine something and have ideas and think, right? Now, I strongly believe that there are burials. Like, if you look at Africa, which is where a lot of the original art for this is, there is evidence of the psychedelic use in the spiritual experiences. Now, the places where they went for those experiences tend to be either where there was cliffs or cliff faces where you can draw a wall out or it overhangs, or chambered places. And the burials were more of just a mound, which doesn't, you don't go inside a burial, it's just covered over. But it tends to be in like a round barrow shape, but obviously there's no entrance because it's covered up. You won't need to go in there. Now, there is a lot of crossover. When you have these experiences, you do go into kind of out-of-body experiences, and you kind of go into spiritual, reflective experiences, and there's a lot of DNA and genetic communication, and it is all about, you know, speaking to your higher self, higher consciousness, which they can relate to ancestor spirits and things like that. And it's all done in an environment where you can reflect and have peace and quiet, or you might have a couple of people, but this really has connections to the origins of the church. Particularly, you know, when these practices were preserved the longest in Ireland and Scotland, which is where the Romans didn't get into, I think a lot of the places were knocked down and demolished. You see, the Christian faith is more reading from a book, right? It's not a very hands-on experience getting engaged in it with the actual sacraments. They only have symbolic sacraments now. Now, if they thought psychedelics were that bad and causing people to go nuts and crazy, and it's just like, you know, a load of rubbish, then why have they decriminalised it in San Francisco? And what about all these institutes? And even you got the King's College with research on it. All these different academic institutions that have been researching it. The only thing that doesn't get researched, I mean, they go to South America, to the Amazon and places like that, where they're still using a lot of substances which are similar but not exactly the same. You know, like ayahuasca and things like that. You know, you've got all the peyote cults. Even when they were using tobacco, they were using a stronger version of tobacco, Nicotiana tabacum, and Nicotiana rustica, which rustica is like a stronger version, and that would send people into psychedelic experiences. They would actually smoke that much tobacco. The Indians, when they actually had these meetings, and they used to gather in wigwams and things like that. Now, you can read about all this separate if you're interested in any aspect of this. You can go check it up if you want. I'm just kind of briefing it. This is only a brief. I'm not here to prove a fact or go into it in great detail. It's just basically to give you the briefing of it, right? There's a lot of spiritual power in those experiences because it's what causes evolution and the emergence of human beings, right? Now, at some point, the major religions, particularly Christian ones, decided that they didn't want us to be hands-on with the sacrament, particularly like when the Roman Empire, it was illegal. You know, Christianity was illegal, but also the Druidry was illegal. I think a lot of those sites were destroyed by the Romans and pulled to bits, except the further reaches of the places they didn't quite get to, like Scotland, further out on the coast, and Ireland, you know. And there were a few places, like, you know, in the Cotswolds and like that, but there were only the odd ones left. I think there were a lot more of them, particularly where we are in West Yorkshire. Now, power and spiritual power has got a lot to do with war and conflict. In fact, you would say that a lot of the designs of churches, a lot of the architecture and structure of churches, even old ones, they're made so they're very strong and tough. I mean, they emphasised and spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, decorating the doors with those, you know, metal studs and making the doors very thick. You know, like if you think of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, you know, when Robin goes to see Marion, it's all, you know, it's like a fortress. The churches of the spiritual people were literally, you know, once you locked it, they were very difficult to get inside, you know, unless, even in siege. It's not a castle, although a lot of churches and cathedrals are within city walls, But as a freestanding building, they themselves are quite tough and strong. I mean, if you go to some of the old churches, I went to some in North Yorkshire, like little old 1300s churches and 1200s churches, and I looked at them and like, wow, look at the thickness of these walls and look how the architecture of it. It's nothing like you build today. It literally, the stonework on it is like meters thick. It's just next level to anything that they're even building now. Do you know what I mean? They were so tough and strong. So it's all about, and inside those places is all about praying, thinking and reflecting. You know, that's the whole point of prayer. There is some connection with the process of praying and, you know, connecting with the deity or, you know, the higher self or inner self or spirits and ancestors. This is why you have people buried around churches at holy sites. There's something in that as well to do with ancient relics of ancestors, the bones of ancestors, and having them either in or around or near the spiritual sites, right? That's for certain. So you could get some sites that are both a combination of not just burial, but also for religious spiritual experiences. Now, with this evidence from Dr. Ekberg, Dr. Berg, and the other top doctors, whereas the breads, particularly the breads that they've changed and modified and given us now, and the sugar, have been inhibiting and hindering the cognitive performance of children and generally humans and putting them at a disadvantage. That is fact. I mean, I'm not arguing that with you because it is scientific fact now, right? You can go and check the doctors and check it out with them. The specialists, putting everyone on bread, therefore, and sugars, like they've got Silver Spoon, British Sugar, Bury St Edmunds, Warburtons, is actually putting your population at a disadvantage. Now, if we go with the premise and with the evidence from the psychedelics and through the substances that we are looking at as helping and aiding evolution and growing it, not actually hindering it, then to stop the masses, the general public, using those sacraments and engaging in the spiritual experience, when a lot more people used to be baptized properly, like obviously it's like a rebirth experience. You've got, you know, Strabo writes about the Gauls were doing this. It's not just the Picts who were painting the bodies and having these religious experiences. Actually, all across Celtica, all across Europe, back, you know, before the Roman Empire set to war, it was common practice in Gaul, in France as well, and they've got a lot of those ancient sites, like the Grand Dolmen and things like that, right? All across Gaul. So it was something that, because they all believed in that religion and they all believed in, you know, like your spirit can survive after you've died and you can, you know, or after you can leave the body and have a, you know, you might want to use the word dream or you can call it astral projection or whatever, but, you know, these things are not crazy, they're not dangerous. It is actual a part of the human body and biological system. And, you know, if you want the data and confirming that with experts, then their data is there. The only data that the King's College isn't getting, the only research that these universities aren't doing, is actually going to ancient sites, to ancient burials and cairns and having these experiences in a proper setting. Or really, they're not even going into churches and having these experiences, are they? They are doing it literally in, you know, in a scientific laboratory situation, which is quite clinical, and I don't think it's very earthy or very evolutionary. You know, it's kind of like a sort of clinical and quite unnatural. It's not a natural environment, that's for certain. It's not a forest, and we've evolved through forests. You know, we used to be apes back, if you go far back in time. I'd say that. I'd use that as a word and statement. It's not evolutionary, and it's not natural. It's not a natural environment. So I actually think that they know this is important. They even show off and call the legal, the top druids were meant to be the ones who were giving judgment and to do with social decision making and law. It was actually lower down in the learning when it was actual natural studies, stargazing, astronomy, nature, which probably would have included the spiritual experience as well. And, you've also got the poet class, and the artists in the druid culture. So judgments and law was a top area. Now, you get them showing off now, calling them chambers, when you've got QCs and that, they work from chambers, and even in Parliament, they call them chambers. So they like to throw that word around and use it for themselves in power. Now, the problem is, if the Romans wiped out a lot of those sites and they ended up becoming more of something for an elite, or only for the spiritual, only for the priests, only for the ordained clergy, only for the kings and queens, only for the archbishops, right? Then the general public were disqualified from being able to partake in and have their hands-on religious experiences, right? Now, and those could have actually helped people's imaginations and also, with their ideas and reflection and decision-making, not actually being hindered, which it definitely has been confirmed as being hindered by Silver Spoon, British Sugar, Warburton's Bread. And it's got the name on it, Warburton's. Now, there's something to do with the war, right? The German war. And I really hope that I could somehow get this message to Jeremy Corbyn. I'll try comment it on one of the videos that he puts or something recently that he's uploaded. I know Jeremy Corbyn's been talking about all this anti-Semitism and stuff like that, and he's had a lot of flack for it. And I don't really want to argue or talk about the gas chambers or the Jews, but I know the style and design of those gas chambers is like the ancient sites. Now, there's something happened around the time of Albert Hofmann and all around that time when they were doing research. There's something happened to do with certain substances and sacraments being discovered, and it may be even to do with smoking. Like they've discovered that the Indians were smoking and having like those Nicotina rustica experiences over in the Americas, which were actually it's so strong that it actually induces a psychedelic experience. Because it works on the whole body as well, the Nicotianas. Now, I actually think that there was something to do with this power and religious power in the war, which is why they've styled the gas chambers on it. They really don't like people using the sacraments. That's why, they've made it all illegal now, psilocybin and things like that. They really don't want people taking and using it. And they really actually try to rubbish and ruin the ancient sites. And I've got evidence from that in my other petitions. They've got to make out that they care about it with national heritage, but a lot of them have already been destroyed, and particularly our ancient sites have been spoiled here. They get the new conquering monarchs' buildings put on them, or they get built over the top of. Either they get built over the top of, and the names changed of the areas to mean something that's, rubbish, like a Waterloo toilet, and then they get their own names put on places where it's Earl Dartmouth or whatever, and the street's named after them, things like that, and then towers plonked on top of it. It's all about conquering and domination. Now, if you want to say there's something wrong with me over that, there is a defined in the other video I put on the megalomania video. That's what megalomaniacs do. They're obsessed, and if anybody challenges them, they attack them. Kirklees Council's not that happy at the moment, and now the government have suddenly decided they're going to have a new building for people who are seeking asylums in there, asylum seekers. We've been threatened. Now, in the war, the tanks, of all places they could have gone training, and we've got Wales that has got loads of terrain, there were lots of places they've got terrain. They sent tanks, and they sent them tearing up and down places like Sisbury Ring Hill Fort, and it actually ended up damaging it a lot. There's a lot of places they sent tanks on training like in brackets, or in hyphen, training exercises that actually went up tearing up with the tracks, tearing up and ruining loads of ancient sites. I mean, you can't even use tanks on the road now because apparently it damages the road. You can't even get your tax because it causes damage to the tarmac, right? I'll challenge Charles on that now, right? They tore up a lot of ancient sites, conveniently fitted in with their training. And also, they built all these war bunkers. Now, the bunkers, no matter how functional you say they are, or they might have been made out of necessity, it was an absolute necessity that we needed them to... They had to be defendable and they had to be, spy, watch out for German planes coming over, right? And they're all around the coastline. Now, a lot of those ancient sites were around the coastline, particularly in Scotland and Wales. A lot of those ancient sites and chambers, right? Now, the style and design of these chambers is... They actually look like... You can see one there in the middle. I've got the picture of it up, right? And there's one of those chambers as well, actually at this site here, this Isle of Man site, which actually was a very, very, very important ancient site. It's quite unique having 6 chambers all the way around it, right? But they've got this war bunker there. The thing with the war bunkers now, why aren't they all taken out? Why, after the war, why didn't they pull the bunkers out? Why didn't they go, get the cranes and take them out and get rid of them, Why would you want a war and conflict symbol there? I think they like them being symbolic because it's about conflict and war and domination and fighting. Now, whenever you see these ancient sites and these, with these bunkers near them, there's actually one near Castle Hill as well, actually, at Kirklees. It looks like a chamber, but it's making concrete old bunkers and chambers look like they're only to do with war and conflict, and it's conjuring up fighting, war and conflict and battling and people getting shot and killed, right? That's what image it's conjuring up. It definitely is not a monument, an installation that symbolises a religious experience like a church or going to see ancestors or spirits, unless they've been shot or killed or bombed. I really don't like the whole idea of it. I think there's some ulterior motive idea behind it, and it puts people off associating the chambers with going into it to have a religious experience. I mean, where else would you go for a religious experience? The thing with Belas Knap and the thing with Uli Longbarrow, Cotswolds, Hetley Peglas Tuft, is it looks like a female genitals, which is where you come out of when you're born, a rebirth. That's where you come from when you're born. Well, when you have that religious experience, it's a rebirth. You actually get born, right? Now, I actually think that a lot more of the chambers were for religious ceremony, rebirth ceremonies. But the thing is, they call them all tombs. They call them all graves. Oh, there were some remains in there. There were some remains in there. The remains could have got in there at any time they stopped using them, or they could have wanted to have the remains in there near it, because if you're having an experience when you go to experience to join or meet with, or for ancestors, then you have them near you. The bones. They call them relics. Even in the in the Christianity, you have relics of saints, and you keep them near and around, the places. Now, I think this is what I think. Yeah, I don't think that the royalists want people, the general public, to be in the non-hindered mindset, because they feed them the bread and the sugar, and it makes private school kids a lot better than them when public school kids are being put on rubbish foods. And I don't think they want people to have religious experiences or know about it or learn about it, because they associate it, or no one really talks about the sacraments or the mushroom sacraments over here unless they're hippies. And archaeologists are reluctant to go into it, and they've been trained and told and educated to always call these tombs, burials, dead people. And a lot of the Irish ones have been ransacked and pulled to bits anyway. Some of them definitely are tombs because they're completely sealed off. Like at Tassila Donasia, we know they were putting barrows, but it's just around mound, right? But when you've got chambers and you can go inside, like Gravinis and things like that, ask Howard Crowhurst, he's an expert. They're temples, and temples are for religious experiences. Literally, effectively, like very, very, very ancient Neolithic churches, basically. I mean, that's the whole idea of the church. You go into it for religious experience. Now, the thing is, at the moment, we're not doing that. People aren't doing that. And when they go into a church, I guess you can go into a church and just say prayers and sit in silence. You can sit in silence and reflect and say prayers, but all you've got to look at are the stained glass windows, and all you've got to read is their book and the Bible and sing their songs. You don't really go into your own biology. You don't really go into your own higher self. And the thing with these experiences is this, and this is a really important thing, it strips down and it removes all of the conditioning that you've had from the television, all of the things that you're distracted with, advertising in real life, all of the things that have been imposed on you, and you go back to this natural, untainted consciousness where you can actually really know and understand what you are as a human being, as a creature, and what that creature is constituted from, what it's made out of, how it works. And some of the ancient memories that you've got, genetic memories, animals know how to do this, animals know how to do that, because it's all programmed into them genetically. And you're actually not getting influenced by the outside world. The whole point of the chamber is to protect you from the outside world, so you can go into the inner world, an inner world that is not imposed on by the outside world. Now, if you notice what they're doing currently at the moment is it's all about being primed 24/7 with the outside world. Their advertising boards, eat this ice cream, fall for the flavour, buy this, go through McDonald's, television, their newsreaders all the time, their charity cases all the time. Stop using your water, turn your water down, give it to charities abroad that we're attacking, that we're invading, that our tanks, aeroplanes, guns and bombs have attacked, send money here, send money there. Save animals. Oh, yeah, the animals that we're eating and cutting up ourselves, because, we eat animals, then they get asking to send money to save animals when, we shouldn't be killing them in the first place, shouldn't need to. It's all light-up billboards now. And they really wanted to not just kill, they really want to erase, wipe from existence, completely erased from history even. If they could get away with making it so none of these sites, even any evidence or remains of these sites were there, I think they probably would, right? And then they accuse us of, needing to go to an asylum or, not being fit for purpose or being crazy, this or that, when we wouldn't be humans. We'd still be a monkey. You wouldn't be a Homo sapien if it wasn't for these substances, and you can check on the scientists for that, Charles. Ideas are crazy to animals that don't have ideas. Wearing clothes, being human, is not natural and not normal to animals. So there is an element of craziness to the human condition compared to an animal. I would say that. Now, I think that Charles III and his regime don't want the human population to engage in religious experiences that are responsible for our evolution. I think he prefers us to be doped up on Warburton's bread and Bury St Edmunds sugar and be put at a disadvantage cognitively to the private school kids from birth, put at a disadvantage from them, so memory's not as good, performance in court's not as good, right? I challenge him. And they don't want us to switch off the TV, switch off the TV, and go into reflective, philosophical states, and most professors have got to spend time in contemplation. Never mind just going into a church and having some peace and quiet from it all and praying, and they've still got these places. Does the Archbishop of Canterbury go into a church and find time in contemplation to pray to God in peace and quiet? Or is he sat in front of Charles's charity adverts all day? I don't think the Archbishop can get enough charity. All day, television priming, buy this, buy that, buy Charles's bread, buy Charles's butter, buy Charles's firm products, buy Charles's products all the day. On the Irish products, get Charles's roadworks, Kier, Balfour Beatty, build Charles's houses, build the old Dartmouth's houses, build the old Dartmouth's houses, build the old Dartmouth's houses. Right? Where is the nature in it? I don't think that psilocybin is legal because they don't want us to catch up with them. They want us not only to hinder us evolutionary progress, and they want to beat us, just like Oxford beats Cambridge. And if you think there's anything out of the ordinary about anything I've said, why is it all experts, psychedelics experts in San Francisco, they're decriminalising it? In San Francisco, decriminalised. Why is it that all as parents seem to be doing is sat in front of the TV, making decisions in the house and from what the TV primes them to do? The TV primes them to do this. The TV grooms them to do that. People's families and friends now are doing what the television tells them, not their family. They've got this new artificial intelligence replica that is going to be the kid's new friend. We've got Facebook groups where they're putting people in very convenient boxes and you can't talk about anything outside of this box. Never mind, going to raves and going big fish, little fish, cardboard box. Oh, you can't talk about politics in any other groups except this group. You can't talk about anything about that in another group. And if you say anything out of line, then the admins and moderators are banning people. When even you've got free speech, you've got a right to opinion. Some of them are banning people and kicking them out just because they don't agree with them. When you've got a right to your own point. Fundamental rights aren't being upheld by Nick Clegg and by Mark Zuckerberg, yet they're wanting to go even further and wrap it around your head now with the goggles. You're definitely not going to escape the daily life, the modern world, to reflect on nature, and no one's going to like and enjoy nature when they've wrapped it around your head with virtual reality goggles. At that point, the sun doesn't rise on a morning and give you light for free into the world. The rain doesn't fall for free into the world. You are literally... It's not your owning a world of your ancestors and the evolutionary power of a human being. It is everything created and being to you, if you go into that metaverse, is going to be from Mark Zuckerberg's mind, from other persons, and it's going to have a very strong grooming effect and imprint on people. And what we need to understand is, what have they been doing to us up to this point? Is it all good? Well, it's not all good, is it? Because we know we've got environmental problems which Extinction Rebellion are kicking off about the planet and the temperature and the environment and the weather. That's why they're protesting. We know that there's an excess of litter. We know there's an excess of junk. We know there's a lot of junk products that they're just cheap ones and they don't last that long. And, why make them? We know there is a lot of junk food that's actually also professional expert medical people saying that it is hindering us. It gets to a point where when you've got researchers in bread empires and they're researching products and modifying breads and starches and waxy starches, and you go across the road and buy a curry, look at the ingredients, waxy starch. Do you really want to be putting wax inside your body? Why get a curry that's got waxy starch? It's almost like being attacked. I really am concerned. And the only thing that, you get Charles III saying is, I was sending you a loony bin. We're sending you an asylum. When we challenged their megalomania. back in the day, there used to be multiple kings. There used to be multiple rulers. And the actual spiritual order, the Druid orders, were actually national and separate. Now, I really think that these people they've passed the threshold of, I think it's they are the ones who have got psychological problems because they want and need billions. And then you get Robert De Niro coming in on the bread advert going, oh yeah, that's Jonathan's house. Jonathan's house is rubbish, it's not the best thing since sliced bread. It's rubbish. Anyone who wants an house like this is, I'm American. I want a, Mark Zuckerberg mansion. I'm Robert De Niro. And you aren't going to stop me having a Mark Zuckerberg mansion and having all the money in the world, billions, or else I'm going to send my, they don't send tanks and bombs and guns in. This is the thing. They only need military vehicles. They only need military equipment and armed weapons when entire countries, other governments and populations say, we're not doing what you say. Then they send the scalding tank in. In their own country, they can't really declare war against their own country and have official military because the parties won't get voted for, and their pretend parties, the pretend governments are not going to get voted for, right? Now, operations. What is a military operation for? What is the point in a military operation? Why does it exist? It's there to get people to do something that they don't want to do, whether it's their leaders in government or the entire country. It's down to one thing. It is a vehicle only for getting people to do something that people who are in charge want them to do, right? Now, in this country, the cannon for that is not a tank. The cannon for that is TV advertisements, government legislation, laws, broadcasting, celebrities on the TV that they're choosing, selecting stars they're paying for. But now when a lot of musicians with power, a lot of artists with power, a lot of TV presenters are taking the opposite side and the opposite view, and they're not going to, go along with what the government wants to do and says. They're going to bring new parties in, new political parties that want to do something different. Then they're bringing out the heavy artillery, the heavy advertising, the heavy influencer material, influence your family, influencing your friends, trying to get the celebrities who are sold on their excess and greed and groomed through X Factor and programs like that. That's what they're actually doing. And they've got the financial capacity to do it because they've actually got all of the money. They have all the money in the world and they've accumulated all the money in the world. Why do you need billions? You don't need 1 billion or 2 billion or 3 billion. You don't need any billion. This is the point. And the word bullion is bullion. Gold bars, it's not dissimilar from the word bully, particularly when bullies force people to do things, and that's what armies are really, big bullies, particularly doing things illegal. Now, if we challenge this regime, if we challenge them, we've called them out on setting up illegal road signage around England and proved it. Is that a lie? No. I swear on the Holy Bible of God, it's not a lie. It's not a lie. Right? Now, we shouldn't have to be attacked by advertisements and television. And you might say, well, go on YouTube and Facebook, there's tough regulations. You got to tick boxes to say you're not intending to upset or harm anyone. Warburton's Bread is harming people. Bury St Edmunds Sugar Factory is harming people. Have they ticked a box and signed it to say they're not harming people when they are? Because the medical experts have agreed. Now, they are, in their minds, they are attacking individuals And what they're doing is they're locking down the laws and rules and legislation. They're locking down the platforms to make it very hard for us to do anything. You can't do a political advert unless you get a passport. Then you've got to get a new passport. Then you get your passport clipped. Then you get the passport they want you to have, even though you don't need to prove your identity with a passport in England. A birth certificate proves your identity, right? They are making it very hard to tag people and do things on Facebook. They don't want us to have any political power. Now, the problem is we've got Charles, who is, he proclaims, I want to be a monarch who has more to do with politics. I want to be a monarch, Charles III, who is going to be engaged more in politics. How ridiculous! He's in Parliament. What is Parliament? It is the government of the country. What is the House of Lords? Anything that goes through Parliament has to be verified and approved by the Lords and signed off by the King now. Right? Now this is the thing though. In this country, what is government all about? Deciding what you can and can't do. But why? So you can or can't do it. It's about doing it. It doesn't matter what the law is. It matters if there's a law so you can't do anything, then you can't do nothing. You can't do one thing. You can't do squaddly jack shit. If there are laws so you can't do anything. So it's about making laws on what you can do. Right? But notice the main prior thing attached to that is actually going and doing it. Now, who is doing it? And who is doing the most of it? And who is in control of doing the most of it? Well, it just happens to be the firm, the family, BlackRock Vanguard. Or does it happen to be the Prince Andrew, the Prince Charles, the Earl Dartmouth? They're not just in a position of overseeing the local county and area and appointing a high sheriff to ponce around with a hat on, with a feather in his hat and a pin stuck in the back of his head, right? On behalf of the government, Lord Walney is going to be going, or Lord Adonis is going to be going around on the trains and surveying the country on behalf of the government, seeing if the train service is up to speed. I'll go back to Parliament and give a report on it. I'm doing my job. I'm Lord Adonis. I'm going around see if the public transport's in good order. And then it's Lord Walney checking out on if rights are going okay. They're, on behalf of the people, the government, the Parliament, they are making sure that the laws are working and the services are all right. That's fair enough. Does it say that Lord Walney and Lord Adonis own all of the train stations and the railway companies that they're checking out? Because it would be something insane, Charles, and I speak as a right-thinking person. Tell me where I'm wrong, at what point and place is it wrong? It would be rather ridiculous if the Lord Adonis was going round to check if the train systems were up to speed and in good order around the country, if he fucking owned them all! If he owned the shares in them all, and if he fucking run it all! Because why would he be doing it on behalf of the country from Parliament if it was his fucking company? Care, Balfour beat me! Taylor Wimpy! Wimp on, wimp off! And there's a fucking wimp on when you've stuffed bread down the throat and sugar. It's criminal and illegal. They're owning the building companies now. And to make more and more money and sustain the obesity of these companies that they've gained, they need to do more and more. They can't afford people to object against what they're doing. And they're using their advertisements to condition people to say, it's the big sell. You want this, you want this, you need this, you need this. You want this cassette, you want this cassette player. Now you want this, no, chuck that on the refill pile, on the refuse pile. Now you want this CD. Oh, no, we don't need those, throw them away. Now we want the MP3. And by the way, it just happens to be that now everyone's rising up to political opposition, that, the music artists will be reduced to, tuppence. They won't be even making any money out of it. Now they've got a voice and they can say something in opposition. We are actually being taken over by this firm. And it's not just a case of, I'm Lord Pimplenickel. I've got a wine company like Nancy Boozy Pelusie's got a wine company. Oh, that's okay. You're allowed to have a wine company. We don't want you to be completely and totally poor, even though you're getting subsidised from the government with loads of money, for being the king. We've got to beat everyone. Well, I thought that, the king wasn't really involved in the government and lawmaking anymore. Well, you don't need to be involved in lawmaking when you actually own all the companies that are doing the things that, the law decides whether they can and can't not do it anymore. But it's who would come out with such a statement? Who in their right mind? Who in their right mind would dare to say, I think I might want to be a ruler who's more involved in politics, when he's got a firm that owns all the companies that we can't afford to stop. And if we wanted to stop them, we'd have to get petition signatures and get it debated in Parliament or vote against it. Who influences those voters? It's illegal to influence the electors. It's illegal for the council to influence the electors. Yet the council now is putting up propaganda and material, the blueprint for Huddersfield everywhere before they've even done it, before we even decided we want it or not. The big sell. The firm is influencing the electors. And it's beaming it out, and he doesn't want people to go into their houses, shut their doors, and stare at the walls and have a spiritual experience and actually free and liberate themselves from all influence so they can make a informed, correct, intelligent decision based on their own inherited genetics, their own inherited intelligence, free from bad influences. They actually wants to wrap it all around your head now. He wants to wrap the fucking baguette around your head. And he wants Mark Zuckerberg going to the metaverse to contemplate, going to the metaverse to reflect, when we can't get the adverts off his mobile phones popping up on the adverts all the time. It's actually malware. It's hindering my time. It's hindering my smooth interactions of apps. It's actually malware. The firm is malware. The modified wheat starch or waxy starch is malware. The sugared buns that are designed to look nice and taste nice, where X Factor contestants who haven't got a brain cell left in the brain are addicted to and will fight, will battle you. They will join forces with the firm for their right to eat donuts and the right to destroy their own metabolisms. That's what we're at. And you got David Beckham queuing up 12 hours to see the Queen when he's already been, put in his place. He's been given a couple of scoldings and warnings from speed cameras and this and that. But yeah, he's fighting for the greed and excess side. Unfortunately, they're using every single technology they've got now in psychology to brainwash people into their regime, rather than people being spiritually liberated and making decisions based on pure logic, rationale and intelligence that has not been influenced, and actually understanding the process of priming, understanding the process of being groomed, understanding the process of being influenced and the effects that it has on people. And that is why I strongly believe that, obviously there was a war. We can't say for sure, who was pulling what strings behind the scenes, if there were certain agreements, if there weren't certain agreements. We don't know. It wasn't a pretty picture. It wasn't a nice thing that happened, but there's something odd and not right about it. the gas chambers are designed, it's a fact. The shape of the gas chambers is designed very similar to the ancient sites, particularly the ones that had the court chambers and areas, like Newgrange, and like Haley Pegler's Tuft, and like Bellasnap. Why is that? It's intimidating. Why are these war bunkers all around the coast and left there, and naturally near ancient sites and on some of them, when some of them got torn up by tanks? It looks like... And another thing that I've nearly forgot this, just remembered now. When you go into those chambers now, the war bunker ones, right? It's all about looking out. They've got holes in them and those slits and windows where you look out. So you go into them, but it's all about, oh, you went in there to look out, you went in there to look out, look out, look out, look out. It's a look out, look out, look outwards, look outwards, look outwards, right? You go into them, it's got windows, you know, what the fuck would I be doing in here? Like, if some kids go in there, it's like cold and damp, you know. It's not actually, it doesn't feel natural. A natural hole, a natural hide, a natural cave is rustic. It's earthy. It's not actually sort of, it's not actually like a clinically square concrete mould thing with smooth walls or with a uniform shape, you know. It's more earthy and natural. When you go into those places, it conjures up the thought form and it primes you to think, oh, when I'm going here, I'm going into a place to look outwards, to look out, you know. Well, it's not. You were meant to go to the original places to look inwards, to actually be shut off from the outside world, like you get sensory deprivation tanks, and reflect, pray, look inwards, and actually not look out. So it's actually giving you the reverse psychology to make you think the wrong thing, to have those sites near them, right? And you're definitely not going to be looking out, looking inward into yourself when you get the fucking Zuckerberg glasses wrapped around your head. You're going to be looking out into their world, what they tell you, their things, what they're programming. And it might be fun. It might be cool to, you know, go on a Jurassic Park virtual reality and go back to see dinosaurs or whatever. But there's this sinister element. These ads, this forced, you've got to watch this, you've got to watch that. Now we've made you stop for 5 seconds. You know, this authority, this malware. And what's the malware out on the roads when you're about? The illegal road signs, the maliciousness of it that's been put into it. Same with the courts, and even when you stop and park. It's this. The bread. Why did they change it and design it? I think they knew. You don't have a multi-billion-pound industry with scientists who are even testing those things when someone hasn't found out that it's probably not a good idea or it definitely has a negative effect. Someone knew. It doesn't take Dr. Bergen Eckberg in 2020 to know that. I think they knew it. Now, what you've got to prove is that they intended it. Their complete stupidity. You can get George Galloway broadcasting, publishing, saying that, you know, it's royal quackery or whatever, or the nutcases. You know, Boris Johnson, it's just incompetence, it's just incompetence. Lawrence Fox and Neil Oliver have talked about this incompetence. Or is it incompetence or not? That's the question. Because if it comes down to incompetence, then they're not meant to be guilty. But if there is some understanding and knowledge behind it, and they do it with an intent, then it's actually intended and it is a malicious act against humanity. And I think it was intended on the highways and roads. I think it is intended. And therefore, I think it's institutionalised corruption. I think it's institutionalised corruption and done with intent. Now, if Charles III wants to say that I belong in an asylum, why, then he might as well line up the professors and doctors that I have quoted in this discussion. I've quoted them. Who would sit on a throne with a crown? Who, you know, how many people on the planet do that? Who's the odd one out? There's only one quackpot left. There are hardly any quackpots left with crowns on because half of them have abdicated. The Germans, the Russians, even Putin doesn't have a crown on his head. So I challenge I challenge that the quackpots are quite clearly obvious. The people who... why cannot you simply, if man, you're not live alone on daily bread, but, every word and breath from the mouth of God. But, notice that in that prayer, no one mentions $1 billion, Mr. Bond. Man cannot live alone except on $1 billion. No one needs $1 billion unless they need it to keep everybody under control. Now, if you're providing a service for the planet, if you're providing food, then that's what you do. You provide food, but why do you need to make $1 billion out of it? And send Robert De Niro, with his fucking mafia gang to, go and make an extra additional point out of it and say that anyone who just aspires to have a nice, quiet cottage, rustic cottage in the countryside in peace and doesn't want to be forced to change to modern things, when there are plenty of other places for modern things going on in the world where they can go to, it's all forced for profit. For the sake of profit. No one's holding any progress back from scientists, but it's causing detriment to other people. I think this is quite a big thing because it comes down to the evolutionary process. This subject is actually about evolution. The whole psychedelic subject, the whole ancient sites subject is about evolving and evolution. And bread and sugars aren't evolving us. They are hindering us. Now, if you get a monkey swinging him around in the trees, he has to be keen and alert to make sure that he fucking catches the right branches and his tail clicks on. If you've got a Manx cat on the Isle of Man, it's not going to do too well swinging in trees or jumping around in trees if it hasn't got no tail. And that's another pedigree point that they like to throw in there. So, I think it's malicious. Now, I'll say to Corbyn, right? I'll say to Jeremy Corbyn, if I can actually get a message to Jeremy Corbyn in this world, I don't think it is just incompetence. And if it was, why would we want an incompetent government? If it is incompetence, why are we still electing these ministers and MPs? If it was incompetence, then surely the royal family aren't competent enough. So it can't be incompetence. It has to be intended. I think it's intended. And I think that we need some legal criminal action. Now, Corbyn says, we don't want to make enemies out of people. We want to try and get people to do the right thing, right? Which, fair enough. But why is it that we are still seeming to be under attack? We're still getting bombarded with adverts infiltrating us houses, getting family and friends to do this and do that, things that are not healthy or good for them. Why is it that we're getting, buildings disappearing? Why is it we're getting countryside destroyed and ruined? This is the thing. The military operation, when the Prince Andrew is not on his battleship, he's on his business voyage. You only send cannons over to China to make them buy our stuff. So when you go back home, then you can put your business suit on and take your military costume off and then go sell them all the shit you want them to buy. Or make them make shit for you. That's all in a day's business. So it's about business. And this is their cannon, right? And this is why we've got a serious problem. They're trying to claim that, it's a country that's got a democratic vote and then the army represents us, when it doesn't. It seems to me that the army is going out and representing the firm's interests and the firm's lobbying the government to get this changed and that changed. Who is the firm? Who's lobbying the government? Is the fucking Earl Dartmouth so he can build more houses. Why is the Earl Dartmouth not on Iceland building houses? Calling it, Dartstown, Dartsbridge, Darts Tower, Darts Street, Darts Road. In Iceland, not here. Because we have been conquered by this firm and family who are obsessed with money in excess and making junk. Literally making junk. They're not involved in politics. You don't need to be involved in politics when everything you're doing is freaking legal and they're out doing it. It's hard trying to say that they're not, trying to claim that, I'm not involved in politics. I'm Charles III, I'm not involved in politics. But I don't need to be involved in politics when all the laws are set in favour of my firm, which is now accumulated all the money in the world and we're out doing what we want around the world, where, you know, it's not the laws of England when my battleship doesn't need the laws of England because, you know, we're blowing up the other country's laws and country, where, you know, we've got immunity. We're exercising diplomatic immunity while we're blowing up everywhere else and sending us bank managers over to finish the job off, doing deals with Saudi Arabia and God knows where. It's just insidiously corrupt. The whole idea of it's insidiously corrupt. And then, you know, we have to be battered and bombarded by fucking Robert De Niro's on the fucking TV programmes, by Warbans. This is it. Corbyn, I'm sick of it. I've had enough of it. And like George Galloway actually understands it and hasn't had enough of it as well. We're being actually attacked within his own country through the cannon of their companies and adverts and their team, which happens to be the team that's got the most money. There's no... I don't think there is any chance of a victory over it because we can't afford. And now they're putting the prices up. They're using all their effects on the entire economy to literally blag, putting prices up. But yet people aren't getting more wages or more money. It's all a load of rubbish. They're taking money off us so we can't afford to do anything anymore. Can't even afford to pay electric bills, right? That's what they're doing. They're forcing us into a position where we don't have any money spare to actually do anything politically because they're changing it's like a DJ and a DJ mixer tweaking the sound. And you might have all these experts in the stock market, experts in the economy, but the most of it is, for the most part, it is a consensual load of bollocks. It's a consensual load of rubbish. If you agree to that system, it's basically one person setting numbers and saying people can and can't do this and that. You don't actually need economy and banks. Banking and the economy is a load of rubbish because all you need is a room where people decide what certain people can do and can't do, like with skills and vocation, and when they shouldn't be doing it. That's all you need. And that comes down to decision making. It doesn't even come down to numbers. Governing by numbers is defective. If there was ever a waste of cassette tapes and CDs before the next best thing that comes on, which is MP3 files, then it would be a complete and total waste of coins, fucking checks, banknotes, you know, gold bars or whatever to dictate, you know, who can and can't do what. Why would you? Why wouldn't you just want to go out and have one meal, you know, or go on a couple of holidays, or get some new clothes when you need them, or a new sofa? I don't think normal people would even want that. And the fact is, it's the adverts. The firm is trying to get them to want and buy more through the TV. That's their intent. Then they're trying to say, oh, everyone's raiding the shops, we can't have a country when there's no money. They're all going raiding the supermarket. Who's putting the adverts out on the TV and brainwashing people to want more? Have this, have that, buy that. Oh, look at this, and I've got a yacht here, then I've got this there. You can't afford that, can you? The ones who have got the excess are the problems, the ringleaders and the culprits. So, you know, you can take your fucking Robert De Niro fucking gang firm and stick it. There's nothing wrong with me. And everyone was friendly, everyone was happy until all this kicked off. And now most people are grumpy. So, you know, they're complaining that people aren't getting along with each other and having to have fences around the schools when it's being caused by them. They're actually the culprit. They're actually the main reason. You can have social groups. You can have places to send people who've got problems, you know, who Jimmy Savile sort of people can be dealt with a lot more differently. And that's what those religious experiences teach. You get into philosophical discussions, reassessing your motivations and actions. Maybe Savile could have gone into a religious experience and fucking figured out why that he was behaving like that. He might have made more progress with him. Because people just want to be childish and go on the news, hey, Jimmy Savile's weird, blah, blah, blah. Childish news programmes, calling the news. Childish to the next incident. When the firm has got that much control over the country, they are causing a lot of these incidents, and there's a lot of sinister ones as well. Like Sarah Morrissey kid. It's not just coincidence. They've got a certain power now where they also can evade detection and do stuff covertly, which is how they're doing the military exercises abroad. That's where they learned it and owned it. And they're doing it in this country. If they don't want someone to do something, they obstruct and block them. They hinder them. You don't happen to be in the right place at the right time. You don't happen to be able to get someone's phone number or phone them. They, this and that. Even the professors are kicked out. Why is it Professor Tim Wilson? Someone sent a stalker out to his house, badgering him, and he ended up having to move abroad. When the next thing, the British military are supposed to be protecting us, when Tim Wilson's wife's getting raped on a boat in Greece. Seems all too convenient. This is a guy who went abroad to represent England, abroad, and he's watching a TV interview that he did and they changed what he said and edited and dubbed it. Again, I've seen it on the BBC. They broadcast the programme from the BBC and say certain things targeted at people, and when you listen to it back later, it's been edited, removed, taken out. The radio is one of the prima facie vehicles for espionage and military exercise. Using voices of celebrities to tune into a person or tune into a group. Suggestive psychology. That's how they're getting everyone, parents, to do stuff now that the rest of the families don't want to do. They're tuning in. All you do is because they know everything. Now listen to that Tom Jones song, Burning Down the House. You ain't seen nothing yet. Tune into your TV set. What do you expect? They know what you expect when they have had someone listening in to everything about you. They know where you're going to go on holiday, and they know what you like and what you're going to buy. So they can predict. That's what the whole Big Brother programme is about, predicting behaviour and why I don't like it. And Mark Zuckerberg is going to put the pedal to the metal with the metadata on you that they'll have. And when you contact businesses and companies, it's all regulated, I'm doing a petition, I want some addresses, give me some emails, I'm not selling you them. Why? Because you haven't got a data protection certificate. Well, I don't need one, I'm exempt, it's a petition. In fact, I can get all the addresses from the council. I've got the right it's for a referendum. I want to get a petition for a referendum. I've got the right to have the entire electoral register for that purpose. And data protection breach is only a fine anyway. And the whole point of the right to petition is that you can't be fined. That's the point. You don't get fined. We used to have all the addresses in the yellow pages and phone book, but that's far too much power for someone to have now. If someone had the fucking phone book now, doing petitions, they'd wipe the floor with the fucking local council. It's been pulled. Too much power. We're meant to have the internet and Google search, but you can't get that much information off there now. They're trying to obstruct and block it all. The metadata is going to be all this stuff. Don't tell strangers anything. Don't give people money. Strange companies are taking information, taking data and rights from us. And then they have companies who have got to regulate, but who all knows all information? The firm! Who owns the majority of the big companies that's any worthwhile in having any personal data? What are they fucking using it for? They can drop into your front room, check up your metadata, get fucking Replica Alexa plugged in to fucking say this or that. And then your life is literally controlled by these people. But all we get is fucking Nick Clegg sat there, Spectre, with Zuckerberg saying, we are going to do this, and when we do this to you... Oh, and by the way, the fucking government are all retarded. The government can't keep up with us because they're too slow, a.k.a. check out Biden's fucking memory and recall skills. Yeah, he's gone senile with dementia. When I, Nick Clegg, state the government can't keep up with us tech people because we're fucking whiz geniuses, Check Biden out, by the way. Yeah, he's gone retarded. Hashtag global president. Kneel to the king. Right? We're being assimilated by the firm, Charles. And there is nothing wrong with me. You need to be in the asylum, and I can ask the sovereign of Pope Francis to intervene, because actually he is a king, and he's a king in all realms. And we can ask for divine intervention against these corrupt firms who also pose as people who are above the law. How can we, if Balfour Beatty and Care Traffic are breaking the law, doing illegal road signs, right, well, we won't just fine them. We won't just get a case so they've got to stop doing what they want in the civil court. I want legal action. It was intended. It was precognized planning corruption. It was defrauding the public. That's a crime and offence. Who owns these companies? Who owns the shares? Can we get corruption charge against them if it turns out to be the royal family? Does that mean that the businesses care Balfour beat me is immune from prosecution? So that gives them license to break the law if the royals firm fucking owns them. Now, tell me, is the police chief officer going to tell me that we're being built, having houses built on us when they're cheating planning, we're having road signs put up when they're cheating it, when it's owned by the royals who can't be prosecuted for doing it wrong? So effectively, we've got businesses that are immune from the law, like half the House of Lords. So talk about burning the fucking house down. I am sick of it. Neil Oliver is sick of it. Lawrence Fox is sick of it. George Galloway is sick of it. Gail Bradbrook, Roger Allen's sick of it. We're all sick of it. It's a criminal family who are using crime to influence us for Moorish pursuits. And we've got the Tower of London. Why is it that we've got previous people, we've got Mary Queen of Scots off with her head? Was that illegal? Well, how did they manage to pull it off then? We need something to happen. They're illegal processes. They're impeaching the president. He's been impeached twice in America. Why is it that the front row of people to go sniff at King Charles anyway are all criminals? Tony Blair, criminal. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, all David Cameron, involved in businesses, making money, investments, yet when he was Prime Minister. It's just like lining up the criminals. The front row of people spectating Charles are all criminals. Tony Blair's even actually, someone tried to arrest Tony Blair. He's not only a war criminal, he's involved in those road signs being set up illegally. Cameron admitted they were wrong and said, we'll just get some new ones. It's not good enough. Just getting some new ones. Cameron admitted it. It's the fact that someone intended to deceive us, make a gain, and put us at a loss, and then accused us of being dangerous and used safety and children as leverage to make us feel guilty and that we're bad people, when actually we weren't. People were just going about the normal business on roads that were nowhere near schools. Yes, there were some accidents here and there, but then again, why would cars even go fast? I had a limiter on mine, so I couldn't even go that fast anyway. It was limited. But yet, they don't want their cars limited when they're tearing around the countryside in fast sports cars. Jeremy Clarkson and all the lords and barons are going tearing around the Isle of Man, God knows doing what speed. It's one law for them and another law for us. I don't think we can go forward when we've got these people in the House of Lords who can't be prosecuted. We can't have a future with those people if they can't be prosecuted. Not anymore. We might have been able to do in the past, but not now, because they're taking over everything, and it's not just their presence in the House of Lords. They're accumulating businesses and doing stuff to us that are harmful through like the bread and sugar, when they're self-harming as well, and they're actually advocates of that regime. And they're actually helping try and selling it to us. There's something seriously wrong with these people, yet they're all proper and prim. They've got all extended vocabulary and they're very well-spoken, reel off the rights. It's all presentable, yet what's actually happening is not presentable. It's actually chaotic. Piles and piles of refuse dumps, piles and piles of rubbish everywhere. When a lot of people have got perfectly reasonable solutions to it. There are solutions to all of it. And one of the main solutions is stop having excess and too much. But they don't want to hand in the excess and too much because they are the instigators of excess.